So now we are going to get started with the next step of this project is actually to start to apply value to the portrait and start working on our poster. So we're going to create a new file, and in that new file that you are going to create, it's going to be 11 by 17, and it will have a bleed on it. Let's see if it actually works for me here. Okay, and so that can be horizontal or vertical. It's up to you. You really should just consider the composition of your image and your portrait and how the quote that you're required to have in the poster with the portrait interacts. So remember, you can always change the orientation after the fact. I happen to know that I want it to be 11 by 17 and have it be horizontal and give it a bleed here. But again, you can always change it after once you get started with the portrait. So I'm going to go create. And so then you're going to place the photo that you selected of the character that you chose. And so I chose Maya Angelou. So there's a lot of images out there that are available, and I chose one that I liked the best. And you can just make it as big as possible for now for this, but you don't have to. You don't want to make it super small, but remember, you're gonna be able to edit the size afterwards anyways. So we're going to first actually make her image in grayscale, and that will allow us to actually see values better. It would be really hard to add values to her face now. We'll let the computer actually dictate those values for us. So we're going to go up to the image trace section up on the top, and we're going to use the little arrow down, and we're going to say shades of gray. So this is going to make this image in grayscale and create a vector path for us. And as it's doing this, it's actually going to, you'll notice it has tons of little values, so lots of little tiny spaces. And we actually want to minimize this. It will really help us if we minimize the amount of values there are. So go up to the image trace panel up here on top, and then just drag this section all the way to the left. And so it will redo the tracing, and it will reduce the amount of value. So that is more of what we want. You can X that out and just hit expand. Okay, so now you have this photo. So why don't you double click the layer and name it photo, so you know that that's there. And then you're going to add a layer called text. And it's really helpful to have these on 2 different layers. You're going to realize pretty quickly how difficult it is managing all the different pieces if you don't manage your layers very well. And so what we're going to start doing is we're going to start adding text. So you just got to start somewhere. So look at her face. Remember that you have your value exercise, and you have all these values already in store. So I'm going to copy these and come over here and paste them, so you can actually see, okay, I have these values, and you know which one. You have to have a minimum of kind of 6 values, so you can start with the lighter area or the darker. I do suggest that you allow there to be some of the white of the paper to come through. So the lightest area, you could leave just the paper color, but then you could choose the next shade below it. So what the easiest thing to do, and you guys can do tons of this many different ways, you'll all find your own way to do this, is to actually unlock the photo layer and go over here to the direct selection tool, hold it down and say group selection tool, and choose one of these shapes. Okay, so copy that shape, Command C, and then go up to the text layer and go Command F. And if it doesn't do it up there, you can always drag it up. If you see over here on the layers panel, you can actually select that object and move it to the right layer. And then I'm going to lock the photo layer so I don't accidentally mess with that, and I'm going to hide it, so toggle that. So now you see this layer right there. Okay, so it's one individual layer, and then what I'm going to do is I'm going to apply text within that. So I'm going to choose whatever value that might be. Is it 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, or 6? You can always change this after the fact. I'm guessing that's maybe a 3 or a 4, maybe a 5, etc. So I can go inside of this text box, or I can actually choose the group selection tool and just select that type within it, like that. And I'm just going to paste it out here. So again, this is on the text layer. I'm going to hide the photo. And what I'm going to do is I'm going to, for this, and I know that this little empty gap is going to be a problem, so I'm going to, I am going to get rid of that break. And I can angle this text any which way I want. I can copy and paste it down below. And I'm going to just copy and paste it right here. Okay. And then I'm just going to send these files to the back, the text to the back. And again, I'm going to select all of this and right click and go make clipping mask. Okay, so now I have this value instilled there, okay? So then you will just start to add layers, individual layers on top of each other in order to add text within it. And again, you can layer text on top of text. You can make them capped, you make them bold. You can also, you don't necessarily have to use the shapes that Illustrator dictated for you. You can decide your own shapes. You can also, you can play with this text and you can choose a single word like women, okay? And, oops. You can choose a single word and you can make it a lot smaller, and you can do this. So you can see I'm adding value this way, and as I get closer up here, I'm going to layer it like this. So you can kind of like freehand it this way too. So you're going to decide what you want to do, what makes most sense. I just showed you a couple ways that will streamline your process a little bit more. Okay, and you'll notice that you're kind of, every time you kind of roll over, you get these little previews. You can go enter view, and for example, you can say hide bounding box, which will help somewhat of some of the things. You can go view uncheck smart guides, and that you won't get the, like, when you roll over you find the text and stuff. So if you find that really annoying, that is smart guides to turn it off. So then you can still select it, but you don't constantly highlight things accidentally. So obviously you're going to save this file, and as you go, you're going to add value. If you have part of a portrait that is cut off like this cropped, you're going to have to add the rest of it. You don't want to have it cut off there, but because it's just like the hair and the shoulders, you can figure out how to do that. So you can see that when this might be the poster, for example. I have the grayscale. You are required to put the text, the quote that you're using for the portrait on the poster, and then also the person that it is accredited to on here. So I did this just all in grayscale to show you, and I added a background layer over here to put all this stuff on so I don't accidentally screw that up. And then I started to apply the value just like I showed you. Here I chose Times New Roman for this one, and if I hide the photos, you'll see that you'll start to make out the eyes and all that. So I really suggest you start kind of around the eyes, because once you get the eyes defined well, everything else kind of falls more into place. But if the eyes don't look good, then nothing else really looks good. So work on that. You'll see on the other lecture too, when I introduce you to the project, that I show you all the different ways that people have done portraits using typography. And those aren't necessarily all using value. They just use different, like, glyphs. So the eye could be made up of a comma, for example. You can still do a little bit of that too, but you have to make sure that you fulfill the objective, which is to add value.